Hallownest is a kingdom of ghosts. Not just the literal ghosts, the spirits and shades that haunt the ruins, but ghosts of what could have been. A father who could have loved his children, a kingdom that could have survived, a seal that could have held, a god who could have been remembered. Tonight we're going to talk about those ghosts, the sad truths hidden in Hollow Knight's beautiful broken world, the moments that made you pause, made you feel, made you understand why this game stays with you. Let these sad facts wash over you like rain in the city of tears, constant, gentle, cleansing. Let them carry you towards sleep. I'm glad you're here. Let's begin. The Hollow Knight wasn't hollow. That's the tragedy at the centre of everything. The Pale King needed a vessel with no mind to think, no will to break, also no voice to cry suffering. He created thousands of vessels, discarding each one that showed even the slightest hint of consciousness. And then he found one that seemed perfect, empty, obedient, silent. He chose it, trained it, sealed the radiance inside it, and believed he had saved his kingdom. But the Hollow Knight loved him. In the path of pain, hidden deep within the White Palace, there's a memory. The Hollow Knight as a child, small and fragile, looking up at the Pale King. And the Pale King looks back. Just for a moment there's connection. The Hollow Knight feels something. Attachment, devotion, love. That tiny crack in the void was enough. The seal was doomed from the moment it was created, doomed by a child's love for its father. The Hollow Knight spent decades sealed in the black egg, alone in darkness, containing a god who was slowly breaking free. It couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't escape. The infection spread through its body, orange growths erupting from its shell, the Radiance's light burning through the cracks. The Hollow Knight was conscious through all of it, aware of its failure, aware that the love it felt for its father had doomed the kingdom it was created to save. When you fight the Hollow Knight, it's already dying. The boss fight isn't a battle between equals. It's a mercy killing. The Hollow Knight is in agony, its movements erratic, its attacks desperate. Midway through the fight it starts stabbing itself, trying to end its own suffering, trying to stop the Radiance from breaking free. It would rather die than fail its purpose, and if you use the dream nail on it during the fight, you see one word in its thoughts: Father. Even at the end, even in its final moments, the Hollow Knight is thinking of the Pale King. The abyss is filled with the corpses of your siblings, thousands of vessels, maybe tens of thousands, all discarded because they weren't empty enough. They climb toward the light, toward the Pale King, hoping to be chosen. Most of them fell. Their shells littered the abyss floor, broken and forgotten. Each one was alive, conscious enough to try, to hope, to fail. Each one died alone in the darkness, never knowing why they weren't good enough. You were one of them. You climbed out of the abyss, escaped Hallownest, and wandered for years. You don't remember why you came back. Maybe instinct, maybe curiosity, maybe some buried memory of a father who threw you away. You returned to a kingdom that had already fallen, to finish what your sibling couldn't, to succeed where the perfect vessel failed. You're a discarded mistake, and you're the only one who can save Hallownest. Let your breathing slow, matching the rhythm of the rain, steady and endless. The Pale King died alone on his throne, his crown still on his head. He failed to save his kingdom, failed to create a perfect vessel, failed to stop the infection. He watched everything he built crumble, watched his subjects fall to the plague, watched his solution fail, and then he died, sitting in his palace of buzzsaws and paranoia, surrounded by the servants he'd sealed into the walls. No one was there when he passed. No one mourned him. His body sat on that throne for years, decades maybe, slowly decaying while his kingdom died around him. The Pale King sacrificed everything to become what he was. He was a worm once, a massive serpentine creature of godlike power. He gave up that form, died, and was reborn as something smaller, something that could walk among bugs and rule them. His old body still lies in Kingdom's Edge, a colossal shell that dwarfs everything around it. He traded infinite power for a kingdom, and that kingdom destroyed itself. The worm's corpse is a monument to a god's failed ambition. The White Lady bound herself in roots, refusing to move or create more life. She helped the Pale King create the vessels, contributed her essence to the process. She watched thousands of her children fall into the abyss, watched them die, watched the Pale King's obsession consume him. The guilt broke her. She wrapped herself in her own roots, became a prisoner in her own body and waited for death. She's still waiting, still bound, still carrying the weight of what she helped create. The White Lady loved the Pale King. He was a worm, and I loved him, she says, and there's such sadness in those words. She loved him despite his flaws, despite his obsession, despite what he made her do. She loved him, and that love led her to participate in the creation and destruction of thousands of lives. Love didn't save them. Love didn't make anything better. Love just made the tragedy hurt more. Quirrel dies at the Blue Lake. The game never shows it directly, never confirms it explicitly, but the implication is clear. You find him sitting peacefully by the water, his nail planted in the ground beside him. He talks about his journey, about finally understanding his purpose, about feeling complete. And then you leave, and when you return, he's gone. Only his nail remains, standing like a gravestone by the still water. Quirrel was Monomon's assistant, her student, her friend. They worked together in the archives, studying and learning and building something meaningful. When Monomon became a dreamer, when she chose to seal herself in sleep to strengthen the Hollow Knight's prison, she made one final choice. She erased Quirrel's memories and sent him away. She loved him enough to make him forget her, to spare him the pain of watching the kingdom fall, to give him a chance at a life free from Hallownest's tragedy. Quirrel wandered for years, not knowing who he was or where he came from. He travelled to distant lands, saw things beyond Hallownest's borders, lived a life untouched by the infection. But something called him back, some instinct, some half-remembered purpose. He returned to Hallownest, to the archives, to Monomon, and when he helped you break her seal, when he watched his teacher die, his memories returned. He remembered everything, who he was, who she was, what they meant to each other, and he remembered that she'd erased his memories to protect him, that she'd loved him enough to let him go. Quirrel's death at the Blue Lake is a choice. He's completed his purpose, helped you free Monomon, done what he was meant to do, and now he's tired. He's seen the kingdom he loved in ruins. He's lost the teacher who meant everything to him. He's remembered a past that was taken from him. So he sits by the water, finds peace in the stillness, and lets go. It's not a suicide born of despair. It's a quiet acceptance that his story is over, that he can rest now. Let your thoughts drift like leaves on still water, present but moving, here but going. Myla is a miner in Crystal Peak, singing cheerfully as she works. Her song is innocent and sweet, a moment of joy in Hallowness' darkness. She's happy, content, just trying to make a living mining crystals. But the infection is spreading through Crystal Peak, and Myla is in its path. If you return to her later in the game, she's changed. Her song becomes distorted, wrong. Her eyes glow orange. She's still singing, still mining, but she's not Myla anymore. She's just another infected bug. Her consciousness consumed by the Radiance. Eventually Myla attacks you. She's fully infected, hostile, dangerous, and you have to kill her. There's no way to save her. Why, no cure for the infection. No way to bring back the cheerful miner who just wanted to sing while she worked. Many players refuse to fight her, leaving Crystal Peak rather than strike her down. Others kill her quickly, seeing it as mercy. Either way, Myla's transformation is one of the game's most heartbreaking moments. Watching someone innocent and happy be consumed by something they couldn't fight or understand. Myla never did anything wrong. She wasn't involved in the Pale King's schemes, wasn't part of Hallowness politics, wasn't connected to any of the kingdom's tragedies. She was just a miner, working and singing, trying to live her life. And the infection took her anyway, because the infection doesn't care about innocence or guilt. It just spreads, consuming everyone in its path, turning people into hollow shells of who they were. The Nailsmith asks you to kill him after he forges the pure nail. His life's work is complete. He's created perfection, the ultimate weapon, the nail he's been working toward his entire life, and now he has nothing left. No purpose, no goal, no reason to continue. He asks you to strike him down with the nail he created, to end his story at its peak, to die having achieved what he set out to do. You can refuse, walking away and leaving him alive. Or you can grant his request, killing him with the perfect weapon he forged. If you spare the Nailsmith, something beautiful happens. He finds his way to Sheo's hut in Greenpath, discovers painting, finds a new passion and a new purpose. He's happy, covered in paint, creating art instead of weapons. Worry, it's one of the few genuinely happy endings in Hollow Knight. Proof that life can continue after you think your purpose is complete, that new meanings can be found. But the fact that he asked to die, that he saw no value in continuing, that he needed someone else to show him there was more to life, that's still sad. The Nailsmith was so focused on his craft that he forgot how to live for anything else. Cloth is a warrior seeking a glorious death in battle. She's cheerful and brave, travelling to Hallowness specifically to find a worthy opponent, to die fighting something strong. Cloth isn't suicidal in the traditional sense. She's not depressed or hopeless. She just believes that a warrior's death in combat is the highest honour, the best possible ending to her story. She wants to die well, to die bravely, to die in a way that would make her ancestors proud. You can encounter Cloth in various locations throughout your journey, and if you've met her enough times, she'll help you fight the Traitor Lord in the Queen's Gardens. She fights beside you, brave and strong, exactly the warrior she wanted to be, and she dies in that battle, struck down by the Traitor Lord, falling in combat just like she dreamed. Her last words are grateful, happy even. She got what she wanted, a glorious death fighting beside a worthy companion. But watching her die, watching her achieve her dream by ceasing to exist, is heartbreaking. Cloth was so focused on dying well that she never considered living well. The Traitor Lord is Cloth's father, though the game never states this explicitly. He's the leader of the mantises who accepted the infection. Who chose power over honour? Who was cast out by the mantis lords? Cloth rejected her father's choice, left the Queen's gardens, and spent her life trying to embody the honour he abandoned. And in the end, she dies fighting him, killed by her own father, proven her honour by opposing his betrayal. It's a family tragedy played out in a single boss fight, and most players never realise the connection. Let your body sink deeper into rest, heavy and warm, held by softness. Tiso is a warrior who comes to Hallowness seeking glory in the Colosseum of Fools. He's confident, boastful, certain of his skills. He talks about how he'll conquer the Colosseum, how he'll prove himself, how he'll become famous. But when you find him in the Colosseum, he's dead. His body lies broken at the bottom of a pit, his shield shattered beside him. Tiso never even made it to the arena. He died in one of the preliminary challenges, killed by something he wasn't prepared for, his confidence meaningless in the face of Hallownest's dangers. Tiso's death is preventable in one sense. If you never talk to him in Dirtmouth, he never goes to the Colosseum, never dies. But that's not really saving him. It's just preventing him from pursuing his goal, from seeking the glory he wanted. Tiso's tragedy is that he was brave and ambitious, but bravery and ambition aren't enough in Hallownest. The kingdom kills the unprepared regardless of their confidence, regardless of their dreams. The Radiance isn't evil, she's desperate. She's a god who was forgotten, abandoned by everyone who once loved her, actively erased by the Pale King, who wanted to be the only light his subjects knew. The Radiance connected bugs through dreams before the Pale King arrived, gave them a sense of belonging, of unity. It wasn't consciousness in the way the Pale King gave consciousness, but it was connection, and it was real. When the Pale King made the bugs forget her, when he suppressed her memory and scattered her followers, the Radiance was left alone in a way that gods aren't meant to be alone. The infection is the Radiance's desperate attempt to be remembered, to force herself back into the minds that forgot her. She's not trying to destroy Hallownest, she's trying to reconnect with it, to restore the unity that existed before the Pale King. But her method destroys the very minds she's trying to reach. The infection consumes consciousness, turning bugs into mindless husks. The Radiance wants connection, but all she creates is emptiness. She's become the thing she was fighting against, and she doesn't seem to understand that, or maybe she does and simply can't stop. The Moth tribe abandoned the Radiance to follow the Pale King. They were her most devoted followers, the ones who worshipped her openly, who built temples in her honour. But when the Pale King arrived offering consciousness and civilization, the Moths turned away from their goddess. They forgot her, just like everyone else. The Radiance's own people, the ones who loved her most, chose the Pale King over her. That betrayal is at the heart of everything. A god abandoned by her own followers, left alone while they built a kingdom with a new god. The seer is one of the last moths, ancient and alone, remembering the time before the Pale King. She gives you the dream nail and helps you collect essence, guiding you toward the dream realm. The seer is tired, carrying the weight of her tribe's history, the guilt of their betrayal. She knows what the moths did, knows they abandoned their goddess, knows that choice led to everything that followed. When you collect enough essence, the seer finally departs, ascending to join her tribe in whatever realm awaits them. She's grateful to finally rest, to finally be free of the burden of remembering. Hornet is the daughter of Hera the Beast and the Pale King, born from a deal between two rulers. Hera agreed to become a dreamer, to seal herself in sleep to strengthen the Hollow Knight's prison, but only if the Pale King gave her a child. That child is Hornet, half spider, half worm, belonging to both kingdoms and neither. Hera became a dreamer knowing she would never see her daughter grow up, never teach her, never watch her become the fierce protector she was meant to be. Hornet grew up without her mother, raised in Deepnest but never truly belonging there. She's the last guardian of Hallownest, protecting the ruins not out of duty to the Pale King, but out of love for her mother and respect for what the kingdom once was. Hornet is alone, the only one left who cares about Hallownest's fate, the only one still fighting to protect something that's already dead. She tests you, fights you, makes sure you're strong enough to do what needs to be done, but underneath that strength is profound loneliness. Everyone she knew is gone, and she's been alone for so long that even a fight is a form of connection. Let your mind grow quiet, the thoughts fading like stars at dawn, still present but invisible. In the sealed siblings ending, Hornet seals you inside the black egg, taking the Hollow Knight's place as the new prison for the Radiance. She stands outside the sealed door, alone again, knowing she's condemned you to the same fate as your sibling. The achievement for this ending is called Sealed Siblings, acknowledging that despite your different origins, you and Hornet are family. You're both children of the Pale King, both protectors of Hallownest, both willing to sacrifice everything for a kingdom that's already fallen. And now Hornet is alone again, having sealed away the only other person who cared about Hallownest's fate. The dreamers sacrificed themselves to strengthen the seal on the Hollow Knight. Lurien the Watcher, Monomon the Teacher, Yin and Hera the Beast, three bugs who gave up their lives, their consciousness, everything they were to protect Hallownest. They sealed themselves in eternal sleep, their dreams becoming chains that held the Hollow Knight's prison closed. They died believing their sacrifice would save the kingdom, that their choice mattered, that Hallownest would survive because of what they gave up. But the seal failed anyway. The Hollow Knight wasn't hollow, and the dreamer's sacrifice was meaningless. They gave up everything for nothing. Lurien never woke up to see the kingdom he loved. Monomon never finished her research. Hera never saw her daughter grow up. They died for a solution that was doomed from the start, and they never knew it. The dreamer's tragedy is that they made the ultimate sacrifice with complete faith, and that faith was misplaced. Lurien the Watcher was the Pale King's most devoted follower. He lived in the spire overlooking the City of Tears, watching over the kingdom he loved. When the Pale King needed dreamers, Lurien volunteered without hesitation. He gave up his life, his consciousness, everything to protect Hallownest. His last thoughts, visible through the dream nail, are of duty and devotion. Even knowing the kingdom fell, even knowing his sacrifice was ultimately meaningless, Lurien doesn't regret his choice. He would do it again. That unwavering devotion, that absolute faith in a king who failed, is heartbreaking in its purity. Monomon the Teacher became a dreamer knowing exactly what it meant. She was a scholar, analytical and precise, understanding the science and magic behind the seal. She approached her own death with the same intellectual curiosity she brought to everything else. But before she sealed herself, she made sure Quirrel wouldn't suffer for her choice. She erased his memories and sent him away, protecting him from Hallownest's fate. Monomon's last act was one of love, ensuring that the person she cared about most would be spared the pain of watching everything fall apart. Hera the Beast ruled Deepnest, a kingdom within a kingdom, independent and fierce. She negotiated with the Pale King as an equal, demanding a price for her cooperation. That price was Hornet, a child, an heir, a piece of herself that would survive after she was gone. Hera became a dreamer, knowing she would never see her daughter grow up, never teach her to rule, never watch her become strong. She traded her life and her future for a child she would never truly know, and that trade was worth it to her. Hera's love for Hornet was so strong that she was willing to die without ever being her mother. The Watcher Knights guard Lurian's seal, 6 identical warriors who chose to remain with their master even in death. They were the elite guards of the Spire, chosen for their skill and loyalty. When Lurian became a dreamer, they stayed with him, protecting his sleeping form for decades, maybe centuries. They died at their posts, but their duty didn't end with death. Something, loyalty, magic, determination, keeps them moving, keeps them fighting, keeps them protecting a master who will never wake. The Watcher Knights are trapped in eternal service, unable to rest, unable to stop, bound by a duty that has no end. There are actually 7 Watcher Knights, not 6. One of them is already dead when you arrive, its armour broken and empty in a side room. Something killed that 7th Knight, something got past their defences, and whatever killed it left the body there, a warning or a trophy or just another casualty in Hallownest's long decline. The dead knight is a reminder that even the strongest warriors fall eventually, that even perfect loyalty isn't enough to survive forever. Let your breathing become automatic, effortless, something that happens without thought. The grey Mourner lives in the resting grounds, consumed by grief for someone she lost. She asks you to deliver a delicate flower to a grave in the Queen's gardens, a journey that requires you to travel across the entire kingdom without taking damage. If you're hit even once, the flower shatters. It's one of the most challenging quests in the game, requiring patience and careful navigation. But the reward isn't geo or items, it's simply the knowledge that you've honoured someone's grief, that you've helped the Grey Mourner pay respects to someone she loved. The grave belongs to the Traitor Lord's daughter, though the game never states this explicitly. The Grey Mourner loved her, and when she died fighting her own father, the Mourner was left with nothing but grief, and a flower that needed to be delivered. It's a love story told entirely through implication and environmental details, never stated outright but clear to those who pay attention. The Grey Mourner has been carrying this grief for years, maybe decades, unable to deliver the flower herself, unable to let go, unable to move on. The delicate flower itself is from a place outside Hallownest, a gift from lands beyond the kingdom's borders. It's beautiful and fragile, unable to survive the violence that permeates Hallownest. Delivering it successfully is an act of preservation, of protecting something beautiful in a world that destroys beauty. The flower represents everything Hallownest has lost: gentleness, peace, the possibility of love existing without tragedy. Elderbug sits at the entrance to Dirtmouth, the first character most players meet. He's old and lonely, having watched the town empty as bugs either fled or descended into Hallownest never to return. He's kind and welcoming, offering advice and expressing concern for your safety. As you progress through the game, his dialogue changes, reflecting his growing attachment to you and his worry about the dangers you're facing. Elderbug has been alone for so long that even a silent vessel becomes precious to him. If you sit with Elderbug after obtaining the Void Heart, his dialogue becomes particularly poignant. He talks about how the town feels less lonely with you around, how he's grateful for your presence. It's a small moment, easily missed, but it reveals the depth of his loneliness and how much your simple existence has meant to him. Elderbug doesn't ask for anything, doesn't expect anything. He's just grateful that someone came to Dirtmouth, that he's not completely alone anymore. The last stag is the only one of his kind still alive, all the others having died or disappeared. He's been travelling through empty stations for years, carrying no passengers, serving a kingdom that no longer exists. The last stag is lonely and melancholic, remembering when the stations were full of travellers, when his kind served a thriving kingdom. As you unlock more stations, he becomes more hopeful, grateful to have a purpose again, to be carrying passengers through the tunnels like he did in better days. The last stag's dialogue reveals the depth of his isolation. He talks about the silence, about travelling through empty stations, about the weight of being the last of his kind. But he also expresses gratitude for your presence, for giving him a reason to keep going. The last stag represents the loneliness of being the sole survivor, of carrying on simply because there's nothing else to do, of finding meaning in service even when there's no one left to serve. Dirtmouth is the only settlement in Hallowness that's still inhabited by living, uninfected bugs. It sits above the kingdom proper, on the surface, protected from the worst of the infection. But it's nearly empty. Just a handful of bugs clinging to a town that's slowly dying. As you progress through the game, more bugs arrive in Dirtmouth, refugees and travellers who found their way to this small safe haven. The town grows slowly, becoming more alive, more hopeful, even as you explore the dead kingdom below. Let your thoughts dissolve like mist in morning sun, present then gone, leaving only warmth. But even as Dirtmouth grows, it's still a town built on ruins, a small light in overwhelming darkness. The bugs who live there are survivors, refugees from a kingdom that destroyed itself. They're making the best of what they have, but they all carry the weight of what was lost. Dirtmouth represents hope, but it's hope born from tragedy. Community built from the ashes of a fallen civilization. The broken vessel is one of your siblings, another failed vessel that was discarded. It's been infected, its body taken over by the infection, used as a puppet. When you fight it, you're fighting your own sibling, a being that's like you, but failed where you succeeded. The broken vessel is what you could have been, discarded, infected, used as a weapon against other travellers. The fight is tragic because this could have been you, because the only difference between you and the broken vessel is luck. The lost kin is the dream version of the broken vessel, fought in the dream realm. It's faster and more aggressive with new attacks and patterns, but it's also more aware, more present. Fighting the lost kin feels different from fighting the broken vessel. There's a sense that you're fighting the vessel itself rather than just the infection controlling it. That some part of your sibling is still present, still fighting, still suffering. The lost kin is your sibling's consciousness trapped in an infected body, aware enough to know what's happened to them but unable to stop it. The siblings in the abyss are the shades of all the vessels who died during the climb, all your brothers and sisters who failed where you succeeded. They attack you initially, seeing you as an intruder. But with the Void Heart equipped, they recognize you, and they stop attacking. They gather around you, acknowledging you as one of them, as their sibling who survived. It's a moment of recognition, of belonging. See, finally being seen by the only beings who truly understand what you are. In the Embrace the Void ending, the siblings help you defeat the Radiance. They surge up from the abyss, combining with you, transforming you into something massive and powerful. You become not just a single vessel, but the collective will of all the vessels, all the discarded children rising up together to destroy the god who threatened their father's kingdom. It's a moment of unity, of all the failed vessels finally succeeding together, of the discarded proving they were never truly worthless. But you're gone too, dissolved into the collective, no longer an individual. The night ceases to exist as a separate being, becoming part of the void, part of the darkness. It's a victory, but it's also a kind of death, a loss of self in service of a greater purpose. The Embrace the Void ending is bittersweet. The Radiance is defeated, Hallownest is saved, but you don't survive to see it. You become part of something larger, and in doing so, you stop being you. The dream, no more ending, is different. You defeat the Radiance alone, without the siblings' help, without transforming into something greater. You destroy her through your own strength, your own determination. And when she's gone, you remain yourself, still individual, still separate. Hornet finds you in the abyss afterward, confirming that you survived, that you're still you. It's the closest thing to a happy ending Hollow Knight offers. The infection is ended, and you're still alive to see it. But even the dream no more ending is melancholic. Hallownest is still in ruins. Most of its inhabitants are still dead or infected. The kingdom you saved is already gone, and what remains is just echoes and memories. You've ended the infection, but you can't bring back what was lost. You can't resurrect the dead, can't rebuild the civilization, can't undo the decades of suffering. You've stopped things from getting worse, but you can't make them better. Victory in Hollow Knight is always incomplete, always bittersweet. Let your body become weightless, floating in darkness, held by nothing, needing nothing. The City of Tears gets its name from the eternal rain that falls through its ceiling. A massive lake sits above the city, and water constantly drips through the stone, creating the melancholic atmosphere that defines the area. The rain never stops, never slows, a constant reminder of the weight pressing down from above, and of the tears the city sheds for its lost glory. The City of Tears was once the capital of Hallownest, a place of culture and sophistication. Now it's empty, its grand buildings housing only memories and ghosts. The Soul Sanctum sits at the heart of the City of Tears, a place where scholars once studied the nature of soul. They believed soul could cure the infection, that enough soul could purify anything. They were wrong, but they kept trying anyway. Their methods became more desperate and unethical with each failure, crossing lines that should never be crossed, sacrificing bugs in pursuit of a cure that didn't exist. The Soul Sanctum is filled with the corpses of their test subjects, bugs who died in agony so scholars could chase an impossible dream. The Soul Master led the research at the Soul Sanctum. He was once a respected scholar, dedicated to finding a cure for the infection. But his experiments twisted him. He absorbed so much soul that his body warped, growing bloated and grotesque. His mind fractured under the weight of his failures and his power. By the time you encounter him, he's barely recognizable as the bug he once was. He floats through his sanctum, cackling, surrounded by the corpses of his test subjects, convinced that he's on the verge of a breakthrough that will never come. The mistakes and follies in the soul sanctum are twisted creatures that were once bugs, transformed by soul experiments gone wrong. They're not enemies in any traditional sense, they're victims. Each one was a living being with thoughts and dreams and loved ones, reduced to a shambling horror by scholars who thought they were saving the kingdom. The mistakes float aimlessly through the halls, their bodies distorted beyond recognition. They attack you not out of malice, but out of pain, lashing out at anything that moves because they can't do anything else. The royal retainers in the White Palace have been transformed into part of the architecture. Their faces are visible in the walls, frozen in eternal service. They didn't escape. They couldn't escape. The Pale King sealed them inside with him, whether intentionally or as a side effect of his transformation of the palace. They're still there, still serving, still waiting for a king who will never wake. It's one of the most disturbing details in the game. Easy to miss if you're focused on the platforming, but horrifying once you notice it. The White Palace wasn't always a death trap. The palace was once a seat of power and culture, a place where the Pale King ruled and made decisions that shaped Hallownest. But as his paranoia grew, as the infection spread and his kingdom crumbled, he transformed it. He filled his home with buzzsaws and spikes, creating precision platforming challenges that punish the slightest error. The palace that was once a symbol of civilization became a fortress of isolation, a monument to a king's descent into paranoid madness. The Path of Pain is a secret area within the White Palace, accessible only through a hidden breakable wall. It's the hardest platforming challenge in the game, a gauntlet of buzzsaws and spikes that requires perfect execution over an extended sequence. Completing it takes hours for most players, demanding absolute precision and patience, and at the end, you find a memory, the Hollow Knight as a child looking up at the Pale King. The king looks back, and for a moment there's connection. That moment doomed everything. The Pale King's saw blades in the White Palace are a manifestation of his paranoia and perfectionism. They're precisely placed, creating platforming challenges that require perfect execution. One mistake means death, forcing you to start over. The saw blades represent the Pale King's impossible standards, the perfection he demanded from himself and others, the standards that ultimately doomed his kingdom. He couldn't accept anything less than perfect, and that obsession with perfection led him to create and discard thousands of vessels, to seal his servants in walls, to die alone on his throne. Let your consciousness fade like stars at dawn, still present but invisible, lost in growing light. The King Soul charm represents the union of the Pale King and White Lady, two halves of a whole. One half comes from the Pale King's corpse in the White Palace. The other half comes from the White Lady's living body in the Queen's Gardens. Together they slowly generate soul, a reminder of the life-giving power they once shared. But the true purpose of the King Soul is transformation. Take it to the abyss, to the place where you were born, confront the memories there, and it becomes the Void Heart, the charm that allows you to access the true endings, the symbol of a vessel that has accepted its nature. The birthplace cutscene, accessed by taking the King Soul to the abyss, shows the creation of the vessels. You see the abyss filled with shells, thousands of failed attempts. You see the Hollow Knight chosen, taken away while you and countless others are left behind. The cutscene is silent, wordless, but it communicates everything. The scale of the Pale King's experiment, the cost of his solution, the tragedy of the vessel's existence. You watch your sibling be chosen while you're discarded, and you understand that the only difference between you was luck. The moment when the King Soul transforms into Voidheart is significant. You're rejecting the Pale King's legacy, rejecting the life-giving power he and the White Lady represented. You're accepting instead your nature as a being of void, as something that exists in opposition to their light and life. It's a moment of self-acceptance, of acknowledging what you are rather than what you were meant to be. The Void Heart doesn't give you power, it gives you identity, recognition, the understanding that you're not a failed vessel but a being with your own purpose. Deepness is the most unsettling area in the game. The music is sparse and discordant, the lighting is minimal, the enemies are spiders and centipedes and things that skitter in the darkness. The area is designed to make you uncomfortable, to trigger that primal fear of dark enclosed spaces filled with crawling things. Deepness feels hostile in a way other areas don't, like the kingdom itself is trying to drive you away, like you're not welcome in this place of webs and darkness. The Weavers left Deepness before the infection, sensing the coming disaster, but were skilled artisans, weaving magic into silk, creating beauty and protection. But they abandoned Deepness, sealed the entrance to their den, and departed for distant lands. Only one weaver remained behind, too old or too stubborn to leave. The weaver's departure left Deepness vulnerable, without the magic that had protected it, without the artisans who had given it culture. Deepness became a place of pure survival, of spiders and darkness, of everything the weavers had tried to elevate through their art. The midwife still lives in Deepness, one of the few bugs there who can still speak, but her words are fragmented and strange, her mind clearly affected by the infection or by centuries of isolation in the darkness. She talks about children and birth, and the things that crawl in the deep places. She's not hostile, but she's deeply unsettling, a reminder that there are fates worse than death in Hallow. The midwife has been alone in Deepness for so long that she's forgotten how to be anything else. Nosk is one of the most disturbing enemies in the game. It's a shapeshifter that lures prey by taking the form of something familiar. When you first encounter it, it appears as another knight, a mirror image of yourself. It leads you deeper into Deepness, into its lair, where it reveals its true form, a grotesque spider-like creature that wears the shells of its victims like masks. The implication is horrifying. Nosk has killed other travellers, other knights, other beings similar to you, and it's been using their forms to lure more victims into the darkness. Let your mind become empty, a vessel for sleep, hollow and peaceful and still. The sadness of Hollow Knight isn't just in the big tragedies. The Pale King's failure, the Hollow Knight's suffering, the kingdom's fall. It's also in the small moments. The empty benches scattered throughout Hallow, places where travellers once rested, now sitting unused in the darkness. The shops that are still open despite having no customers. The signs pointing to places that no longer exist. Every corner of Hallow is filled with these small reminders of what was lost, of the life that once filled these halls. The game's silence contributes to its sadness. You never speak, never express emotion, never indicate what you're feeling. You're a silent witness to Hallow tragedy, moving through the ruins without comment, without judgment. That silence makes everything feel more lonely, more isolated. You're surrounded by the remnants of a civilization, but you can't connect with any of it. You can only observe, only move forward, only continue your journey through the darkness. The music in Hollow Knight is melancholic and beautiful, perfectly capturing the game's atmosphere of faded glory and quiet tragedy. Christopher Larkin's compositions are gentle and sad, never overwhelming, always supporting the experience. The City of Tears theme is the most famous, a simple piano melody that's become iconic. But every area has its own musical identity, its own way of expressing the sadness that permeates Hallownest. The music never tells you to be sad, it just creates space for sadness, allows it to exist without forcing it. The rain in the City of Tears never stops. It's been falling for years, maybe decades, a constant presence that defines the area. The rain is beautiful and sad, creating an atmosphere of perpetual melancholy. Standing in the City of Tears, listening to the rain and the music, is one of the most emotionally affecting moments in gaming. It's not dramatic or intense, it's just quietly, persistently sad, like grief that's become so familiar it's almost comfortable. The game's endings are all bittersweet in their own ways. Even the good endings involve sacrifice, loss, the acceptance that some things can't be fixed. Hollow Knight doesn't offer easy victories or happy resolutions. It offers the possibility of ending suffering, of stopping the cycle, of making things slightly less terrible. That's the best you can hope for in Hallownest. Not happiness, not restoration, just the absence of further pain. The sealed siblings ending has you taking the Hollow Knight's place, becoming the new prison for the Radiance. You're sealed in the black egg, alone in darkness, containing a god who will slowly break free. You've bought Hallownest more time, but you've condemned yourself to the same fate as your sibling. You'll spend years, maybe decades, alone in that egg, feeling the infection spread through your body, knowing that eventually you'll fail just like the Hollow Knight did. It's a sacrifice, but it's also a tragedy. You've saved nothing, just delayed the inevitable. The dream, no more ending, destroys the Radiance, ends the infection, saves Hallownest from further suffering. But the kingdom is still in ruins, the dead don't come back, the civilization doesn't rebuild itself. You've stopped things from getting worse, but you can't make them better. Hallownest is saved in the sense that it won't fall any further, but it's not restored, not healed. It's just over. The story is finished, and what remains is silence and ruins, and the few survivors trying to make sense of what happened. The Embrace the Void ending is the most final, the most complete. The Radiance is destroyed utterly, consumed by void, her light extinguished forever. The infection ends, but you're gone too, dissolved into the collective, no longer existing as an individual. You've achieved the ultimate victory, but you don't survive to see it. You become part of something larger, and in doing so, you cease to be you. It's a victory that costs everything, a success that feels like failure. Let your breathing become so slow, so quiet, barely disturbing the air around you. The game asks you to accept that some tragedies can't be undone, that some losses are permanent, that the best you can do is prevent further suffering. It's a mature, the honest approach to storytelling that respects the weight of what's happened. Hollow Knight doesn't offer false hope or easy comfort. It offers the truth, that kingdoms fall, that people die, that even gods can be forgotten, and that sometimes all you can do is witness the tragedy and try to make sure it doesn't happen again. The vessels were created to be empty, to have no thoughts or feelings or desires. But they weren't empty. They couldn't be. The Hollow Knight loved its father. You care about Hallownest enough to risk everything to save it. The vessels in the abyss tried to climb toward the light. which means they wanted something, hoped for something. The Pale King's fundamental assumption was wrong. You can't create a being that's truly hollow, truly empty. Consciousness emerges, feelings develop, and the very thing you're trying to prevent becomes inevitable. The tragedy of the vessels is that they were created to fail. The Pale King's solution was doomed from the start because it was based on an impossibility. You can't create life without creating the potential for thought, for feeling, for connection. The vessels were alive, and being alive means having some spark of consciousness, some capacity for emotion. The Pale King spent years creating and discarding thousands of vessels, searching for something that couldn't exist, and his obsession with finding the impossible destroyed his kingdom. The Abyss is the darkest place in Hallownest, literally and metaphorically. It's where the vessels were created, where thousands of them died, where the Pale King's greatest crimes were committed. The Abyss is filled with darkness and death and the weight of uncountable tragedies. Standing at the bottom of the Abyss, surrounded by the shells of your dead siblings, is one of the most emotionally heavy moments in the game. You're standing in a mass grave, a monument to a king's failed ambition, and you're one of the few who survived. The lighthouse in the Abyss is a small point of light in absolute darkness. Someone built it, maintained it, kept it burning even as the kingdom fell. The lighthouse serves no practical purpose, there's nothing to navigate to, no ships to guide. But it exists anyway, a defiant point of light in the deepest darkness, a reminder that even in the Abyss, someone chose to create light. The lighthouse represents hope in the most hopeless place. Beauty in the midst of horror, as the refusal to let darkness win completely. The game's world design reinforces its themes of loss and decay. Every area shows signs of what it once was. Grand architecture now crumbling, beautiful spaces now empty, systems and structures that once served a purpose now sitting unused. Hallownest was magnificent once, a kingdom of culture and sophistication. Now it's ruins, and you're walking through the corpse of a civilization, seeing what remains after everything important has been lost. The benches scattered throughout Hallownest are places of rest, but they're also reminders of loneliness. You sit alone, in silence, surrounded by darkness or ruins or danger. The benches are safe spaces, but they're also isolating, emphasizing how alone you are in this journey. Every time you rest, you're reminded that there's no one with you. There's no companions, no allies, just you and the darkness and the long road ahead. The game's difficulty contributes to its emotional impact. Hollow Knight is hard, demanding precision and patience, and the willingness to fail repeatedly. But that difficulty makes the world feel more oppressive, more dangerous, more real. You're not just observing Hallownest's tragedy, you're experiencing it, struggling through it, feeling the weight of it with every death and every hard-won victory. The difficulty makes the sadness more visceral, more personal. Let your heartbeat slow to a distant rhythm, barely noticed, barely there, fading away. The Pale King's greatest failure wasn't creating imperfect vessels, it was believing that perfection was possible, that he could engineer a solution to a problem that required something other than engineering. The Radiance couldn't be defeated through clever design or precise execution. She needed to be remembered, acknowledged, allowed to exist. But the Pale King couldn't accept that. He wanted to erase her completely, to make her not exist. And that fundamental misunderstanding of the problem led to everything that followed. The White Lady's guilt is profound and permanent. She helped create the vessels, watched them fail, watched them die. She can't undo what she did, can't bring back the thousands of children she helped create and destroy. So she binds herself, refuses to create more life, becomes a prisoner in her own body. The White Lady's self-imposed imprisonment is her way of atoning, of ensuring she never participates in such horror again. But it doesn't ease her guilt. Nothing can. Hornet's loneliness is the loneliness of the last guardian, the only one who still cares about something everyone else has forgotten. She protects Hallowness not because she expects it to be restored, not because she thinks anyone will thank her, but because someone has to. Because her mother sacrificed everything for this kingdom, and Hornet won't let that sacrifice be meaningless. She's alone in her vigil, and she knows she'll probably die alone, still protecting ruins that no one else cares about. The dreamer's sacrifice was made with complete faith, and that faith was betrayed. They believed in the Pale King, believed in his solution, believed their deaths would save the kingdom. They were wrong. The seal failed. The kingdom fell, and their sacrifice meant nothing. The dreamers died for a lie, and they never knew it. They're still sleeping, still dreaming, still holding a seal that's already broken, still serving a purpose that's already failed. The game's beauty makes its sadness more poignant. Hallowness is gorgeous. The art is detailed and atmospheric, the music is haunting, the world design is intricate and thoughtful. The kingdom is beautiful even in its decay, and that beauty makes the loss more painful. You can see what Hallowness was, what it could have been, and that makes its current state more tragic. Beauty and sadness exist together in Hollow Knight, inseparable, each one making the other more powerful. The silence of the dead is everywhere in Hallowness. The kingdom is full of corpses, bugs who died to the infection, to violence, to despair. They don't speak, don't move, don't acknowledge you. They're just there. There are silent reminders of all the lives that ended, all the stories that were cut short. Every corpse represents someone who had hopes and fears and relationships, someone who mattered to someone else, someone who's now just another body in a kingdom of corpses. The game never explains everything, never gives you all the answers. There are mysteries that remain unsolved, questions that go unanswered, stories that are only hinted at. This ambiguity makes Hallowness feel more real, more lived in. Real places have mysteries, have stories that are lost to time, have questions no one can answer anymore. The gaps in Hollow Knight's lore aren't flaws, they're features, reminders that you're exploring the ruins of a real civilization, not a carefully constructed narrative. The Radiance's defeat doesn't feel triumphant. Even in the endings where you destroy her, where you end the infection, there's no sense of victory. You've killed a desperate god, ended a being who just wanted to be remembered. The Radiance was the antagonist, but she wasn't evil. She was alone and afraid and lashing out in the only way she knew how. Defeating her is necessary, but it's not satisfying. It's just sad. Another death in a kingdom full of death. Another being who couldn't find peace. Let your thoughts become like whispers, barely audible, fading into silence, disappearing completely. The game stays with you long after you've finished it. The images, the music, the stories, they linger in your mind, creating a lasting impression. Hollow Knight is the kind of game that changes how you think about video games, about storytelling, about what interactive media can achieve emotionally. It's not just entertainment, it's art. And like all great art, it makes you feel things you didn't expect to feel. makes you think about things you didn't expect to think about. The community around Hollow Knight is full of people who love the game's sadness, who find comfort in its melancholy. There's something cathartic about experiencing tragedy in a safe space, about feeling grief for fictional characters, about sitting with sadness without it being overwhelming. Hollow Knight provides that space, allows that experience, and the community has embraced it. The game's sadness isn't a flaw to be overlooked. It's a feature to be celebrated, a core part of what makes it special. The vessel's story is about being created for a purpose you didn't choose, or you being judged by standards you can't meet, being discarded when you fail to be what someone else wanted you to be. It's a story that resonates with anyone who's ever felt like they weren't good enough, like they were a disappointment, like they failed to meet expectations. The vessels are tragic because they never had a chance. They were set up to fail from the moment they were created. The Pale King's story is about a leader who sacrificed everything for his kingdom and still failed. He gave up his godlike power, transformed himself, created a civilization, and watched it all crumble. He made terrible choices in pursuit of a solution, crossed lines that should never be crossed, and it was all for nothing. The Pale King is tragic because he tried so hard, sacrificed so much, and still couldn't save what he loved. His failure is complete and absolute, and he died knowing it. The Hollow Knight story is about love that wasn't supposed to exist, about feeling something when you were created to feel nothing. The Hollow Knight loved its father, and that love doomed the kingdom. But that love also makes the Hollow Knight more than just a failed vessel. It makes them a person, a being with feelings and attachments, and the capacity for devotion. The Hollow Knight's tragedy is that their greatest flaw was also their greatest virtue, that the thing that made them fail was also the thing that made them real. Your story's about returning to a place that threw you away, about finishing what your sibling couldn't, about succeeding where the perfect vessel failed. You're a mistake, a failure, a discarded attempt. And you're the only one who can save Hallownest. There's something beautiful in that. The idea that the rejected, the overlooked, the deemed not good enough can still matter, can still make a difference, can still be the hero. Your existence is proof that the Pale King was wrong, that perfection isn't necessary, that being good enough is sometimes better than being perfect. The game's message, if it has one, is that tragedy is inevitable but not meaningless. Bad things happen, kingdoms fall, people die, and you can't always prevent it, but you can witness it, you can honour it, you can make sure it's not forgotten. Hollow Knight asks you to sit with sadness, to acknowledge loss, to feel grief for a fictional kingdom and its fictional inhabitants. And in doing so, it creates something meaningful, a shared experience of melancholy, a collective mourning for something that never existed but feels real anyway. The rain in the City of Tears will keep falling long after you've stopped playing. The Hollow Knight will keep suffering in the Black Egg. The vessels will keep lying in the abyss. Hallownest's tragedy doesn't end when you turn off the game. It continues, eternal and unchanging, a kingdom frozen in its moment of greatest sorrow. And maybe that's fitting. Maybe some tragedies should be preserved, remembered, honoured rather than resolved. Let your body become still, completely relaxed, at peace in the darkness, held by nothing. And now, as we reach the end of these sad facts, as the stories of Hallownest fade into memory, let yourself fade too. You don't need to remember any of this. You don't need to carry this sadness with you. The facts will still be here tomorrow and the day after, and the day after that. But right now, in this moment, you can let go. Let your breathing become automatic, effortless, something that happens without thought or intention. Let your body sink completely into rest, heavy and warm, held by softness. Let your mind become quiet, empty, at peace. Hallowness tragedies can't reach you here. The Pale King's failures can't hurt you. The vessel's suffering is just a story, and stories can't harm you in the dark. Thank you for spending this time with me, for letting me tell you about fallen kingdoms and broken vessels and gods who were forgotten. Thank you for sitting with this sadness, for honouring these tragedies, for caring about a fictional world and its fictional inhabitants. Thank you for being here. Sleep now, deeply, peacefully, completely. Let the darkness embrace you like the abyss embraces the void. Let your thoughts dissolve like the Radiance's light in the ending. Let your consciousness fade like Quirrel by the blue lake. Rest in the quiet, in the stillness, in the gentle dark where nothing's required of you, where you can simply be, simply rest, simply sleep. The rain will keep falling in the city of tears. The hollow night will keep standing in the black egg. The vessels will keep waiting in the abyss, but you don't have to carry their weight anymore. You can rest, you can let go, you can sleep. Good night. May your dreams be gentler than Hallownest's reality. May you find peace in the darkness. May you rest well and wake refreshed, ready to face whatever comes next. The kingdom of ghosts will be waiting when you return. But for now, sleep. Just sleep. The Mantis Lords are one of the few groups in Hallownest who maintained their honour and dignity even as the kingdom fell around them. They refused the infection, sealed deepness to prevent the spread, and continued to rule their tribe with strength and discipline. But their honour came at a cost. They had to exile their own people, the mantises who chose the infection, who believed power was more important than tradition. The Mantis Lords had to watch members of their tribe, bugs they'd known for years, maybe their entire lives, choose corruption over honour. They had to cast out their own people and seal them away in the Queen's gardens, knowing they'd never return, knowing the tribe would never be whole again. The Mantis Lords maintained their principles, but they lost their community in the process. They stand in their village, 3 warriors ruling over a diminished tribe, holding on to honour in a world where honour no longer seems to matter. When you defeat them in combat, they bow to you, acknowledging your strength. It's a moment of respect, of recognition between warriors. But there's sadness in that bow too, the acknowledgement that strength is all that's left, that honour and tradition can't save them, that they're just waiting in their village for the end to come. The Mantis Lords are tragic because they did everything right, maintained their values, refused corruption, and they're still losing. Their tribe is smaller, their influence is gone, and they're isolated in their village, surrounded by a kingdom that's already fallen. They won their battle against the infection, but they lost the war for Hallownest's survival. The Traitor Lord represents everything the Mantis Lords rejected: power without honour, strength without discipline, survival at any cost. He accepted the infection because it made him stronger, because he believed that power was more important than tradition. But the infection didn't just make him stronger. It isolated him, turned him into an outcast, separated him from his tribe. The Traitor Lord gained power and lost everything else. He lives in the Queen's gardens with his followers, all of them infected, all of them slowly losing themselves to the Radiance. The Traitor Lord is stronger than he was, but he's also alone in a way the Mantis Lords never are. He chose power over community, and that choice left him with nothing but strength and the slow decay of the infection consuming his mind. When you fight the Traitor Lord, he's aggressive and powerful, but there's something desperate about him too. He's fighting to prove his choice was right, to justify his betrayal, to show that power was worth the cost. But you can see in his movements, in his attacks, that he's already lost. The infection is taking him, and all his power can't stop it. The Traitor Lord's tragedy is that he sacrificed everything for strength, and that strength is meaningless because he has no one to protect, no tribe to defend, no purpose beyond survival. He's powerful and empty, strong and alone, and the infection is slowly taking even that strength away from him. Zote the Mighty is a joke character, but there's sadness underneath the comedy. He's delusional, convinced of his own greatness despite being completely incompetent. Zote carries a nail made of wood that can't damage enemies. He wears a cracked mask and constantly gets into situations he can't handle. You rescue him multiple times throughout the game, from a Vengefly King in Greenpath, from spiders in Deepnest, from his own incompetence in the Colosseum. Zote is pathetic and ridiculous, but he's also trying so hard. He genuinely believes he's a great warrior, genuinely thinks he's capable of the things he claims. His delusion is complete and unshakable, and there's something sad about watching someone be so wrong about themselves, so disconnected from reality. Zote has 57 precepts, rules for life that he'll recite if you talk to him enough. Some are practical, some are absurd, some are contradictory, but there is an attempt to make sense of the world, to create a philosophy, to be more than just a failed warrior with a wooden nail. Zote is trying to matter. He is trying to be important, trying to be the hero he believes himself to be, and he's failing, constantly and completely, but he never stops trying. That persistence in the face of absolute failure is both admirable and heartbreaking. If you save Zote enough times, Bretta becomes obsessed with him, seeing him as a heroic figure rather than the incompetent fool he actually is. In her dreams, Zote becomes Grey Prince Zote, a powerful warrior who's everything the real Zote pretends to be. Bretta's idealised version of Zote is strong, capable, heroic, everything Zote wants to be, but isn't. The sad part is that Zote never knows about this. He never knows that someone saw him as a hero, that someone believed in the version of himself he's been trying to project. Bretta's love is based on a fantasy, on a Zote that doesn't exist. And the real Zote remains oblivious to it all. He continues his delusions, continues his failures, never knowing that someone briefly saw him the way he sees himself. Eventually, if you defeat Grey Prince Zote enough times, Bretta realises that even her idealised dream version of Zote isn't what she wants. She leaves Dirtmouth, goes off to find her own adventure, abandons both the real Zote and the fantasy Zote, and Zote never even notices she's gone. He's so wrapped up in his own delusions that he doesn't realise someone loved him, lost faith in him, and left. Zote's tragedy is that he's so focused on being a hero that he misses the actual connections happening around him, so convinced of his own greatness that he can't see reality, so lost in his fantasy that he's completely alone without even knowing it. Bretta herself is tragic in a different way. She's a dreamer, someone who wants romance and adventure and excitement. She lives in Dirtmouth, a dying town in a fallen kingdom, and she escapes into fantasies because reality is too disappointing. When you rescue her from the fungal wastes, She develops a crush on you, decorating her house with drawings of the night, imagining a romance that can't exist because you're a hollow vessel without feelings or the capacity for love. When Zote arrives, she transfers her affections to him, seeing in him the hero she wants to see, rather than the fool he actually is. Bretta's tragedy is that she's looking for something that doesn't exist in Hallownest, a fairy tale romance, a heroic figure, a love story with a happy ending. She keeps projecting her fantasies onto others, keeps being disappointed when reality doesn't match her dreams, keeps searching for something she'll never find. When she finally leaves Dirtmouth, it's not because she's found what she's looking for, it's because she's realised she won't find it there. Bretta is still chasing her fantasy, still looking for her hero, still believing that somewhere out there is the romance and adventure she craves. But Hallownest is a kingdom of tragedy, not fairy tales, and Bretta's dreams will probably remain just dreams. The Godmaster DLC introduces the God Home, a realm where you can fight perfected versions of every boss in the game. The God Home is accessed through the God Seeker, a bug who worships powerful beings and seeks gods to test herself against. The God Seeker has been searching for gods her entire life, travelling between kingdoms, looking for beings worthy of worship. She found Hallownest and saw in its ruins the remnants of godlike power, the Pale King, the Radiance, the powerful warriors and creatures that once inhabited the kingdom. The God-Seeker's tragedy is that she's worshipping the corpse of a civilization, finding divinity in a kingdom that destroyed itself, seeing power in beings who failed. She's built an entire realm dedicated to celebrating Hallownest's strength, but that strength wasn't enough to save the kingdom. The God-Seeker is worshipping failure, venerating beings who couldn't prevent their own destruction, finding meaning in power that ultimately proved meaningless. The pantheons in Godhome are gauntlets of boss fights, tests of skill and endurance that push players to their limits. Completing them is an achievement, proof of mastery over the game's challenges. But thematically, the pantheons are about fighting ghosts, about battling the memories of beings who are already dead or defeated. You're not fighting the actual bosses, you're fighting idealized versions, perfected memories, dreams of what these beings were at their strongest. The pantheons are a monument to what Hallownest once was, a celebration of its power and glory, but they exist in a dream realm, because that power and glory no longer exist in reality. The God-Seeker has created a shrine to a dead kingdom, and she doesn't seem to understand that the gods she worships failed, that the power she celebrates wasn't enough, that she's venerating a civilization that couldn't save itself. The Absolute Radiance is the final challenge in the pantheon of Hallownest. A perfected version of the Radiance fought after defeating 41 other bosses without dying. She's faster, more aggressive, more powerful than the regular Radiance, with new attacks and patterns that demand perfect execution. The Absolute Radiance represents the Radiance at her strongest, at her most desperate, at the peak of her rage and power. Fighting her is one of the hardest challenges in any video game, requiring hundreds of attempts for most players, demanding absolute mastery of the game's mechanics. But even in this perfected, idealized form, the Radiance is still tragic. She's still a forgotten god lashing out in desperation, still alone, still trying to force bugs to remember her. Making her stronger doesn't make her less sad. It just makes her desperation more powerful, her loneliness more dangerous. The absolute radiance is the radiance's rage and pain amplified to their maximum, and defeating her doesn't feel triumphant. It feels like putting down a suffering animal, like ending something that should have been allowed to rest long ago. The Embrace the Void ending in Godhome shows the Shade Lord consuming the absolute radiance. Void overwhelming light, emptiness defeating being. It's a complete victory, the most final ending possible, but it's also the most tragic, because it requires you to become something monstrous, to embrace the void completely, to lose yourself in the collective darkness. You defeat the Radiance utterly, but you cease to exist as an individual in the process. The victory is absolute, but so is the cost. The Grim Troop DLC adds another layer of tragedy to Hallownest's story. The troop arrives after you light the Nightmare Lantern, a travelling circus that feeds on the flames of dying kingdoms. They've done this for eons, moving from one fallen civilization to another, perpetuating the Nightmare Heart through an infinite ritual of death and rebirth. The Grim Troop represents the inevitability of kingdoms falling, the certainty that all civilizations eventually collapse. They're not causing the fall, they're just there to witness it, to feed on it, to continue their eternal cycle. Troopmaster Grim is elegant and mysterious, treating everything as a performance, maintaining his theatrical nature even in combat. He's been doing this ritual for so long that it's become routine. Just another kingdom, just another collapse, just another cycle. Grim has seen countless civilizations fall, has witnessed the same tragedy play out over and over, and he's become numb to it. He's polite and gracious, but there's a distance to him, a sense that he's not really present, that he's just going through the motions of a ritual he's performed 1,000 times before. Grim's tragedy is that he's trapped in an infinite cycle, unable to stop, unable to change, unable to do anything but continue the ritual forever. He's immortal, but not alive, existing, but not living, going through the motions of a performance that has no end. Broom, the accordion player in the Grim Troop, is tired of the cycle. He's one of the few members who seems to have retained some sense of self, some memory of all the cycles that have come before. Broom has performed this ritual countless times, seen countless kingdoms fall, played the same songs over and over for eons. The infinite repetition has worn him down to nothing, and he's exhausted by it. Broom offers you a choice: complete the ritual as Grim intends, or help him destroy the Nightmare Lantern and end the cycle forever. If you choose to end the cycle, the Grim Troop is banished from Hallownest, and Broom loses his memories, becoming Nim, a simple bug with no knowledge of his past. He seems happier, lighter, freed from the burden of infinite repetition. But you have to wonder if forgetting is really freedom, or if it's just another kind of death. Nim is happy because he doesn't remember the eons of suffering, doesn't carry the weight of countless cycles, doesn't know what he's lost. But he's also not really Broom anymore. He's a new person, created by erasing the old one. The choice to end the cycle is presented as merciful, as freeing Broom from his suffering. But it's also a kind of murder, killing who Broom was to create someone new. Nim is happy, but Broom is gone, and there's sadness in that loss even if the result seems positive. The Hive exists on the edge of Kingdom's Edge, a self-contained society of bees who produce honey and live according to their own rules. The Hive is one of the few places in Hallownest that still functions, that still maintains some semblance of order and purpose. The bees continue their work producing honey, maintaining their home, serving their queen. They're not hostile unless you threaten them, and they seem largely unaffected by the infection that destroyed everything else. The hive represents what Hallowness could have been: a functioning society, a community working together, a civilization that survives. But the hive's survival comes with a cost. Queen Vesper, the ruler of the hive, is dead. She sits on her throne, unmoving, while her subjects continue to serve her as if she was still alive. They bring her offerings, tend to her, speak to her, maintaining the fiction that their queen still rules. The bees can't or won't accept her death, so they continue their routines, trapped in a cycle of denial and devotion. The hive is functioning, but it's functioning around a corpse, maintaining order through collective delusion. The bees are alive and working, but they're serving a dead queen, following the orders of someone who can no longer give them. The hive's tragedy is that its survival is based on a lie, that its order is maintained through denial, and that the bees are trapped in a routine that has no real purpose anymore. The hive knight guards Queen Vesper, a massive warrior bee who fights with honour and precision. He's doing his duty, protecting his queen from intruders, maintaining his post even though his queen is already dead. The hive knight doesn't seem to know or doesn't want to acknowledge that Vesper is gone. He continues to guard her, continues to fight anyone who approaches, continues to serve a queen who can no longer command him. When you defeat the hive knight, there's no sense of triumph, just the quiet knowledge that you've killed a warrior who was only defending his home, who was only doing his duty, who was only trying to protect something that was already lost. The hive knight's tragedy is that his loyalty outlasted its purpose, that his devotion continued past the point where it mattered, that he died protecting a corpse because he couldn't accept that his queen was gone. The bees don't become friendly after his death. They continue their work, mourning their fallen protector in their own way, maintaining their routines around their dead queen. The hive knight's death changes nothing for them, because they are already trapped in their cycle of denial, already committed to serving Vesper regardless of whether she's alive or dead. The grubs are small creatures trapped in glass jars throughout Hallownest, imprisoned by the Collector. There are 46 of them, each one helpless and afraid, making soft chirping sounds, grateful when you break their jars and free them. The grubs are innocent victims, creatures who did nothing wrong but were captured anyway, imprisoned for reasons they don't understand. Each one you rescue returns to the grub father in the Forgotten Crossroads, reuniting with their parent. The grub father is grateful for each grub you return, expressing joy at seeing his children again. But if you rescue all 46 grubs and return to the grub father, something disturbing happens. He's transformed, his body swollen and grotesque, the grubs apparently inside him. The game never explains exactly what's happening, but the implication is that this is part of the grub's life cycle, that the grub father is transforming into something else, that the reunion you facilitated is leading to some kind of metamorphosis. It's unsettling and strange, raising questions about whether you actually saved the grubs or just delivered them to a different kind of fate. Or the grub father's transformation suggests that the grub's return wasn't the happy ending it seemed, that their reunion with their parent was part of a biological process that's neither good nor bad, just alien and incomprehensible. You thought you were rescuing them, but maybe you were just completing a cycle you didn't understand, participating in something that looks disturbing from the outside but might be natural for the grubs. The Collector lives beneath the Tower of Love, a strange bug obsessed with preserving things in jars. His lair is filled with jars containing grubs, but also other creatures, other treasures, other things he's deemed worthy of preservation. The collector genuinely believes he's protecting the things he collects, keeping them safe from the dangers of Hallownest, preserving them from the infection and violence that destroyed the kingdom. His intentions are good, or at least not malicious. He's not collecting things to hurt them, but to save them. But his protection is also a prison, and the things he saves are trapped, unable to live or grow or be free. The collector's tragedy is that his desire to preserve has become a compulsion, that his need to protect has turned into imprisonment, that he's saving things by taking away their ability to exist in the world. He's surrounded by jars full of living creatures, all of them trapped, all of them preserved but not alive in any meaningful sense. The collector has created a museum of captivity, a collection of things that are safe but not free, protected but not living. When you fight the collector, he's defending his collection, as trying to protect the things he's gathered. He doesn't understand that preservation isn't the same as life, that safety isn't the same as freedom, that the things he's saved would be better off taking their chances in the dangerous world than remaining trapped in his jars forever. The Colosseum of Fools sits in Kingdom's Edge, a massive arena where bugs fight for glory and geo. It's run by the Fool, a bug who values strength and spectacle above all else. The Colosseum offers 3 trials of increasing difficulty, each one throwing waves of enemies at you while a crowd cheers. It's pure combat, stripped of context or story, just you against increasingly dangerous foes. The Colosseum represents Hallownest's obsession with strength, with proving yourself through violence, with earning respect through combat. But the crowd that cheers for you is small and scattered. The arena is crumbling, and the glory you earn means nothing outside these walls. The Colosseum is a relic of a time when strength mattered, when warriors could earn fame and fortune through combat. But that time is gone, and the Colosseum continues anyway, maintaining its trials and its spectacle even though there's no kingdom left to care about its champions. The bugs who fight in the Colosseum are chasing glory that no longer exists, earning respect from a civilization that's already fallen, proving their strength in an arena that's become meaningless. The Colosseum's tragedy is that it's still operating, still offering its trials, still promising glory and recognition, but the world it existed to serve is gone. The warriors who fight there are performing for ghosts, earning accolades that mean nothing, risking their lives for rewards that have no value in a fallen kingdom. God Tamer is one of the Colosseum's champions, a bug who rides a massive beast into battle. She's tamed something wild and powerful, turned it into a weapon, trained it to fight in the arena. The beast is enormous and strong, but it's also been broken, forced to fight for entertainment, made to serve a master who uses it as a tool. God Tamer's tragedy is that she's taken something magnificent and reduced it to a spectacle, that she's broken something wild to prove her own strength, that her greatest achievement is the domination of another being. The beast isn't evil or aggressive by nature. It's been tamed, trained, forced to fight. When you defeat them, you're not just winning a fight, you're ending a partnership built on domination and control, freeing a creature that was never meant to be tamed. God Tamer represents the cost of strength, the price of domination, the tragedy of taking something wild and beautiful and breaking it to serve your purposes. She's powerful because she's conquered something more powerful than herself. But that conquest required destroying what made the beast special in the first place. The ancient basin is the deepest accessible area in Hallow, a place of darkness and silence where the kingdom's foundations were laid. The architecture here is different from other areas, older, more primitive, less refined. This was the beginning of Hallow, the place where the Pale King first established his kingdom, where the first structures were built, and the ancient basin feels ancient in a way other areas don't, like you're walking through history, through layers of time compressed into stone. But it's also a place of abandonment, of structures left to decay, of foundations that couldn't support the weight of what was built upon them. The ancient basin represents Hallownest's origins, but those origins are crumbling, falling apart, unable to sustain the civilization they were meant to support. The kingdom was built on a foundation that was already failing, and the ancient basin shows you that failure, shows you the cracks that were there from the beginning, shows you that Hallownest was doomed not just by the infection, but by the weakness of its own foundations. The Pale King built his kingdom on darkness and void, on the abyss and its horrors. Yeah, and that foundation could never support the light and civilization he wanted to create. The ancient basin is where you see that fundamental contradiction, where you understand that Hallownest was built on something that could never sustain it, that the kingdom's fall was inevitable from the moment it's founded. The game's world is interconnected in ways that reinforce its themes of decay and loss. Areas loop back on themselves, shortcuts connect distant locations, and the map gradually reveals itself as a coherent whole. But that interconnection also shows you how everything is falling apart, how the connections between areas are breaking down, how the kingdom that was once unified is fragmenting into isolated pockets. The elevators don't work anymore, the trams are broken, the roads are blocked. Hallownest was designed to be connected, to allow easy travel between its regions, to function as a unified kingdom. But those connections have failed, and now each area is isolated, cut off from the others, functioning independently because the infrastructure that held them together has collapsed. The interconnected world design is beautiful and clever from a gameplay perspective, but thematically it's tragic. You're seeing the skeleton of a kingdom, the bones of a civilization that once worked as a unified whole, but is now fragmented into disconnected pieces. Every shortcut you unlock, every elevator you activate, every connection you restore is temporary, a brief moment of functionality in a system that's fundamentally broken. You can make travel easier for yourself, but you can't restore the kingdom's infrastructure, and you can't rebuild the connections that once held Hallownest together. You're just moving through the ruins, using what still works, accepting that most of it is broken beyond repair. The game's map system reinforces the sense of exploration and discovery, but it also emphasizes how lost and alone you are. You have to find conifer in each area to buy a map, and even then the map is incomplete until you explore and fill in the details. You're literally mapping a kingdom that's been forgotten, documenting areas that no one has visited in years, maybe decades. Every time you open your map, you're reminded of how much of Hallownest is unknown, unexplored, lost to time and decay. The map fills in as you explore, but it never feels complete. There are always more secrets, more hidden areas, more places you haven't been. The incompleteness of the map reflects the incompleteness of your understanding, the sense that no matter how much you explore, you'll never fully know Hallownest, never fully understand what it was or what happened to it. The kingdom is too large, too complex, too full of secrets for any one person to comprehend completely. You can explore it, map it, document it, but you'll always be missing pieces, always be uncertain about the full picture. The map system makes exploration satisfying from a gameplay perspective, but thematically it reinforces your isolation, your limited perspective, your inability to ever fully understand the kingdom you're trying to save. Cornifer is the cartographer who maps Hallow, travelling to dangerous areas to document the kingdom's layout. You can hear him humming before you see him, a cheerful tune that's become iconic among players. Cornifer's dedication to his craft is admirable. He ventures into places like Deepnest and the ancient basin, armed with nothing but paper and ink, driven by the simple desire to map the world. But there's something sad about his mission too. He's mapping a dead kingdom, documenting ruins, creating charts of a civilization that no longer exists. Who is he making these maps for? Who will use them? The kingdom is fallen, the inhabitants are dead or infected, and Cornifer is still carefully charting every tunnel and cavern, still maintaining his professional standards, still doing his job even though there's no real purpose to it anymore. Cornifer represents the persistence of routine, the continuation of purpose even when that purpose has become meaningless. He's a cartographer in a kingdom with no travellers, a map maker in a world where no one needs maps anymore. But he continues anyway, because it's what he does, because his craft matters to him, even if it doesn't matter to anyone else. Cornifer's tragedy is gentle and quiet. He's not suffering, not in pain, just continuing a profession that's become obsolete, creating maps that will probably never be used, documenting a world that's already ended. Iselda is Cornifer's wife, running the map shop in Dirtmouth while her husband explores. She worries about him constantly, expressing concern about the dangers he faces, but she also respects his passion, understanding that mapping is what gives his life meaning. Iselda's dialogue reveals her anxiety. She knows Hallow is dangerous, and thus knows that Cornifer is risking his life to make maps that probably no one needs, but she can't ask him to stop because she knows how much it means to him. Iselda's tragedy is the tragedy of loving someone who's committed to something dangerous, of supporting someone's passion while being terrified for their safety, of respecting someone's choices while wishing they'd make different ones. She sits in her shop at Dirtmouth, selling maps and supplies, waiting for Cornifer to return from each expedition, never knowing if this will be the time he doesn't come back. Iselda's love for Cornifer is clear in every line of dialogue, but so is her fear, her worry, her understanding that she might lose him to his passion for cartography. She's trapped between supporting what he loves and protecting him from danger, and she's chosen to support him, to let him do what makes him happy even though it terrifies her. That choice is both beautiful and sad, the decision to love someone enough to let them risk themselves, to respect their autonomy even when you wish they'd stay safe. The resting grounds is where the bugs of Hallow buried their dead, a quiet place of graves and monuments. The music here is soft and melancholic, a gentle melody that speaks of rest and memory. Spirits float through the area, the ghosts of bugs who died before the infection, lingering in the place where their bodies were laid to rest. The resting grounds represents Hallownest's relationship with death, the rituals and traditions surrounding burial, the importance of remembering the dead. But the resting grounds is also abandoned now, the graves untended, the monuments crumbling. Is the spirits wandering without purpose? The bugs who once maintained this place are gone, and the dead are left to rest in an area that's slowly falling apart, that's being reclaimed by nature and decay. The resting grounds shows you that even death isn't permanent in Hallow. that even the rituals meant to honour the dead have been abandoned, that even the peace of the grave has been disturbed by the kingdom's fall. The spirits that linger here aren't hostile, but they're not at peace either. They're trapped between life and death, unable to move on, unable to rest, stuck in a place that was meant to be their final resting place, but has become just another ruin in a kingdom of ruins. The resting ground's tragedy is that it can't fulfill its purpose anymore, that it can't provide rest for the dead, that even this place of peace and memory has been corrupted by Hallowness decay. The Dream Warriors are the spirits of powerful bugs who died in Hallownest, their consciousness preserved in the dream realm. Each one has their own story, their own reason for lingering, their own inability to move on. Gore believed he was ascending to a higher plane, proclaiming his greatness even in death. Mamu was a child who died young, still playful and innocent even as a spirit. Zero was betrayed and executed unjustly, his rage persisting beyond death. Elder Hu was a peaceful monk who attacks reluctantly, compelled by something beyond his control. Galian was a powerful mage who fought with magic rather than a nail. Markoth was a warrior whose bitterness and anger made him one of the most difficult dream bosses. No eyes witnessed terrible things, her trauma persisting as fragmented dialogue and disturbing imagery. Each dream warrior represents a different kind of tragedy, a different way that death in Hallownest is incomplete, a different reason why spirits can't rest. They're not evil or malicious, they're just unable to move on, trapped by their own emotions, their own unfinished business, their own inability to accept that they're dead. Fighting the Dream Warriors isn't about defeating enemies, it's about releasing them, about helping them finally let go, about allowing them to rest after years or decades or centuries of lingering. When you defeat each Dream Warrior, you're not destroying them, you're freeing them, allowing them to finally move on to whatever comes after death. It's a mercy, but it's also sad because these spirits have been waiting so long for release, suffering in their inability to rest, trapped by their own inability to let go. The essence you collect from Dream Warriors and other dream sources is literally the stuff of dreams, crystallized memory and consciousness. Collecting essence is collecting fragments of the dead, pieces of their consciousness, remnants of who they were. The seer uses this essence to upgrade the dream nail, to give you access to deeper dreams and memories. But there's something unsettling about the process. You're harvesting the consciousness of the dead, collecting their memories like currency, using their essence to power a tool. The game doesn't present this as evil or wrong, but there's an uncomfortable implication that you're taking something from these spirits, that you're using them even as you're releasing them. The essence system is mechanically satisfying, giving you a reason to seek out dream content and fight challenging bosses. But thematically, it raises questions about what you're doing, about whether collecting the essence of the dead is respectful or exploitative, about whether you're honouring these spirits or just using them for your own purposes. The game doesn't answer these questions, doesn't judge you for collecting essence, but the ambiguity is intentional. You're doing what needs to be done, collecting what you need to progress, but the cost is measured in the consciousness of the dead, in the memories and essence of spirits who can't refuse, who can't say no, who exist only to be harvested and used. The White Defender is the dream form of Dung Defender, representing him in his prime before age, and loss diminished him. Fighting the White Defender is fighting the knight he once was, experiencing his skill and enthusiasm at their peak. The White Defender is cheerful and honourable, treating your fights as friendly sparring matches, congratulating you each time you defeat him, and inviting you to fight again. He's one of the few bosses who seems to enjoy the combat, who treats it as a game rather than a life or death struggle. But the White Defender is also a memory, a dream of what Dung Defender was before the kingdom fell, before his friends died, before he was left alone. The real Dung Defender, the one who exists in the waking world, is sad and lonely, sitting in his chamber surrounded by statues of the other knights who served with him, all dead now. The White Defender is who he was, and the contrast with who he is now makes both versions tragic. The White Defender shows you what was lost, what Dung Defender used to be before grief and loneliness changed him, and the real Dung Defender shows you what remains, what's left after everything important has been taken away. Fighting the White Defender is bittersweet. You're experiencing Dung Defender at his best, but you know that version of him doesn't exist anymore, that the cheerful warrior in the dream is just a memory of someone who's been broken by loss. Dung Defender himself is one of the 5 great knights, the Pale King's elite warriors. He protected the royal waterways, maintaining the kingdom's sewers and waste systems, doing unglamorous but necessary work. Dung Defender loved his duty, took pride in his role, found joy in serving the kingdom even in the literal filth beneath it. But after the kingdom fell, after his fellow knights died, Dung Defender was left alone in the waterways, still protecting them even though there's no kingdom left to protect, still maintaining his post even though his duty has become meaningless. When you first fight him, he's enthusiastic and cheerful, treating combat as a joyful challenge. But after you defeat him, his dialogue changes. He becomes sad, realizing that the kingdom he protected is truly gone, that his duty is meaningless, that he's the last one left. Dung Defender sits in his chamber, surrounded by statues of the other knights, Isma, Hegemol, Zayma and the Pale Lurker. He built these statues himself, monuments to his fallen friends, reminders of the warriors he fought beside. Dung Defender is the sole survivor of a group of friends who protected Hallowness together, and his loneliness is profound. He's not just mourning the kingdom, he's mourning his friends, the people who mattered most to him, the warriors who shared his duty and his purpose. Dung Defender's tragedy is the tragedy of the last survivor, of being the only one left to remember, of carrying the weight of all those deaths alone. He maintains his post in the waterways not because it matters, but because it's all he has left, because his duty is the only connection he still has to the kingdom and the friends he lost. The 5 great knights were legendary warriors, each one powerful enough to shape the kingdom's history. Isma had the power to resist acid, to move through toxic environments without harm. Hegemol wore massive armour and was known for his strength. Zayma came from a distant land and fell in love in Hallownest. The Pale Lurker's identity is mysterious, possibly the 5th knight or possibly someone else entirely. And Dung Defender protected the waterways with enthusiasm and dedication. These 5 knights were the Pale King's greatest warriors, the defenders of Hallownest, the heroes who protected the kingdom from threats both internal and external. But they're all gone now, dead or disappeared, leaving only memories and the statues Dung Defender built to honour them. The 5 great knights represent what Hallownest was at its peak, when it had heroes and legends, when it was strong enough to inspire loyalty and devotion. Their absence shows how far the kingdom has fallen, how much has been lost, how even the mightiest warriors couldn't prevent Hallownest's collapse. The 5 great knights failed not because they weren't strong enough, but because strength wasn't enough. No amount of skill or power or dedication could save a kingdom that was doomed by its own foundations, by the Pale King's choices, by the fundamental contradictions at the heart of Hallowness' existence. And so, we come to the end of these sad facts, to the conclusion of this journey through Hallowness tragedies. We've talked about the Hollow Knight's doomed love, about the vessels discarded in the abyss, about Quirrel's peaceful death and Myla's infection. We've talked about the Pale King's failures, the White Lady's guilt, the Radiance's desperation. We've talked about Hornet's loneliness, the Dreamer's meaningless sacrifice, the Mantis Lord's isolated honour. We've talked about all the small tragedies and the large ones, all the ways that Hallowness broke, all the reasons why this kingdom of ghosts can never be whole again. These facts are sad, but they're also beautiful in their sadness, meaningful in their tragedy. Hollow Knight doesn't shy away from loss or grief or failure. It embraces these themes, explores them deeply, treats them with respect and honesty. The game's sadness isn't gratuitous or manipulative. It's earned, it's real, it's the natural result of the story being told. Hallowness fell because of choices made by flawed beings, because of love and fear and desperation, because of the impossibility of perfection and the inevitability of failure. The kingdom's tragedy is complete and absolute, but it's also deeply human, deeply relatable, deeply moving. We care about Hallowness not because it was great, but because it tried to be great and failed. We care about the Hollow Knight not because it succeeded, but because it loved its father and that love doomed everything. We care about these stories because they're about trying and failing, about loving and losing, about doing your best and having it not be enough. These are universal experiences, universal fears, universal truths. Hollow Knight takes these themes and explores them in a kingdom of bugs, in a world of darkness and void, in a story about gods and vessels and infection. But underneath the fantasy, underneath the unique setting and the creative world building, the themes are deeply human. The sadness is real sadness. The loss is real loss. The grief is real grief. And that's why it stays with us, why it matters, why we keep coming back to Hallowness, even though we know how the story ends. Now let yourself rest completely. Let these sad facts fade from your mind like dreams fade in the morning. Let the weight of Hallowness tragedy lift from your shoulders. Let the darkness embrace you, not as the abyss embraces the void, but as sleep embraces the tired, as rest embraces the weary, as peace embraces those who have carried too much for too long. You don't need to remember these stories. You don't need to carry this sadness. You can let it go, let it drift away, let it become just another dream that fades with the dawn. Sleep now, deeply and completely in darkness that's gentle rather than oppressive, in silence that's peaceful rather than lonely, in stillness that's restful rather than empty. The kingdom of ghosts will be there when you wake, if you want to return to it, but for now, rest. Just rest. Let go of everything and sleep. Good night.